Hello, humans. This is Steven Stull, and you are listening to The Hold Up. This is the podcast where I interview a friend of mine about a movie that they remember loving but haven't seen for at least 10 years. We have two conversations. First, we talk about what they remember. Then we split up and watch the movie, and we get back together and talk about how well it holds up. This week, I am talking to my friend Jeff Frumess. Jeff, am I saying that right? Did I screw that up? I should have asked before we started.
No, you said it perfectly. It's great.
Okay, perfect. Awesome.
I give you an A+.
Well, good. We're all done. We can wrap up here and shut down. How you doing, Jeff? So, I guess.
Oh, I'm peachy keen, man. I'm having a good day.
Glad to hear
Thanks
that.
for asking.
Glad to hear that. I love. We are on a video chat right now, and I guess I don't know. This is nobody cares about this, but I love your pulsating Christmas tree lights on your wall.
Everybody does.
It's pretty slick.
Thank you.
I think I'm going to go into a trance while I'm watching them. But anyway, so Mr. Frumess, you have chosen to take a look at the movie Meet the Feebles. And I gotta confess up front that I have seen this movie, of course, and I love this movie. So I got a lot invested in this one too. When was the last time you saw Meet the Feebles?
So typically I have these movies. There are these films in my life. There's no set number that I can qualify exactly the number or anything, but there are these movies in my life. I discover them and then I revisit them from time to time. There are some movies that I watch once a year. There are some movies that I watch once a decade. There are some movies that I watch every couple of years. There's some movies that I watch when the movie strikes me. There are some movies that when I watch it, I literally cannot see it for like years. Like I just had my fill and I never need to watch it. And there are other movies that I can compulsively and obsessively watch over and over and over again. One of those is Return of the Living Dead. I can watch that back to back 3 times. And I have. I've watched it and I watched it in 2 different commentaries. It's a very easy thing to do.
You've given me an excuse to make oh, I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead. I'm sorry. You go.
I'm gonna out myself here. This is all about like divulging our innermost secrets and things like that. So I want to tell you something horrible about myself. Do you remember? Because the whole story. This is about Night of the Living Dead. So Night of the Living Dead was in the public domain because of a dumb copyright thing, and so everybody got to release their own version of it. And there was a group that released a 30th anniversary edition, and they were totally unconnected to the original production, but they decided to shoot some extra scenes. Did you ever see that?
Okay, so what you're referring to is actually the John Russo helmed Night of the Living Dead 30th anniversary from 1998, where they took the same film equipment that they shot the original Night of the Living Dead with. I think this was all the old Image 10 equipment.
Yeah.
The company that made that was called Image 10, which was George Romero, Russ Streiner, and John Russo's company, and they shot new scenes, including scenes with this preacher fellow.
Right.
And at the end of Night of the Living Dead 30th anniversary, the plague is solved. The case is solved, and it makes all the other movies not exist. Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead never happened in John Russo's Night of the Living Dead. I love you, John, for your contributions to the genre, but fuck you, John Russo.
So here's my shameful confession. That was the first version of Night of the Living Dead I ever saw.
Oh, that's nothing to be ashamed of, or like to be embarrassed about.
Is it not? I feel kind of bad about it. Like the thing was out there for so long.
I watched it on VHS when I was 10 years old, and it was probably one of those public domain copies, because every home cassette place put it out. And it's funny. I saw Return of the Living Dead at the exact same time on the Sci-Fi Channel. I caught half of it. I recorded it on a tape, and I wore that tape out. I watched it as a 10-year-old boy. I watched it obsessively, and then finally I rented it so I could see the whole movie, and I saw it with all the gore. The half corpses breastises were blurred, like the rope was yellow instead of red. I remember that very clearly because they were trying to they did some sort of pattern to make it so that you couldn't see the nips on the breastises of the half corpse. And because of course, every teenage boy or adolescent boy is gonna, masturbate to a half dead woman's exposed, rotting breastises, because that's just how we all do.
That's
and damn you, Sci-Fi Network, for
denying us
for bring it out.
We
but I could watch
demand
that
our
movie over and
nipples.
over again. You know,
Yeah.
In the case of Meet the Feebles, I probably have not seen it in 5 or 6 years, and here's the other thing too, and I'm sure you do this, Stephen.
Mm-hmm.
I will go, wait a minute, this movie hasn't come out on Blu-ray yet. I can just wait. I'm gonna wait until
Yeah.
that release comes, and then what I like to do is I get that release and I go through all those. Sometimes I'll do. I don't know. You tell me. What do you think is better? Do you and I do it both, and I'm not sure. I always regret which one I choose, and think that the grass is greener on the other side.
Right.
Do you watch all of the bonus supplemental materials first? Obviously, this is a movie you've seen many times,
Yeah.
so it's not like you're spoiling anything, and then watch the movie. So it's like this is like an appetizer leading up to watching the feature, and then do a commentary afterwards. Or do you watch the feature unfettered,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like how what we do here on your podcast of like coming into this conversation relatively unwatched or what's it called, atrophied.
Yeah.
Um,
That's a good word.
Do you watch the movie first and then watch the bonus features after?
Well, I think okay. So what happens is I decide that I'm gonna watch the bonus features. I'm gonna listen with a commentary or something like that, and I'll grab the movie and I'll put it in the player. And then in the time it takes me to like sit down, I just get kind of flush with the idea of rewatching the movie, and I just watch the movie again, and never get around to the features. Like, I mean, if it's like if it's like one of those short, if they have a whole slew of like 7 or 8 minute BTS or interview featurettes or something like that, I might cycle through those, but it's been a long time since I sat down and listened to a commentary from beginning to end, and I'm kind of embarrassed about that because I have all these special editions and things. But it's been a really long time since I watched a movie with the director's commentary on or anybody's commentary on.
You got to treat them like podcasts, man. Like
Mm-hmm.
you watch the movie, or I watch the movie without. I watch the movie without what's it called? I watched the movie by itself, like giving it my full attention.
Right.
And then I put it on in the background and just listen to the commentary track. And that is, I find, because it's hard.
Yeah.
It can be hard. But I find that has been the best. And you got to do it immediately after you finish watching the movie. Because
So
if
that
you
it's all
don't,
fresh and
you're never going to go back and watch it just with the commentary. You're going to be, because every time you want to watch a movie, you're like, well, I don't want to watch the commentary. I want to watch the movie.
Right, exactly.
And then you'll never do the commentaries.
You say that I love podcasts. I love listening to podcasts, but I listen to so few throughout a week. In fact, and this is a weird thing. I've actually since the quarantine started, I've actually my podcast listening has actually plummeted to basically like 1 or 2 episodes of something a week when I used to do a lot more than that. And I think it's because I can't, like, if I'm at work, because I usually listen to podcasts when I'm at work, and if I'm at work and I'm listening to a podcast and I need to like write an email, I have to like stop the podcast and write this email. I can't do both of those things at the same time, and I really have a lot of envy for the people who do. So like if I am listening to a podcast, and this is what I'm thinking of when you're saying, I can put it on the background, like, because I do that with like TV shows, I'll put on, just for some noise, I'll put on The Office again for the 19th time or something like that. But when I have a podcast playing, I have to just like play solitaire or scroll through Instagram or something. I can't even, read people's posts on Facebook or something like that because I'm too focused on what I'm hearing. I can't multitask like that. And I don't know if that's like a sign that I'm a dinosaur. I'm not really equipped to succeed in the 21st century or something like that.
No, that's like a brain thing. I forget. No, that's like a thing. It's called there's audio learners and visual learners, and like there's like a thing where like there's some people that can multitask, and there's some people that have to like auditorily focus, or they won't retain the information. It's like reading, when you read like 3 pages and you like forgot what you don't retain anything you're reading, you have to go back and read it again. It's like you're on autopilot. You're actually reading, but you're not like your brain is not like interpreting what you're reading.
Yeah, I think shit, I just forgot. Anyway, yeah, no, that's my yeah. If there's something like I have like a sensory processing disorder where you know how if there's like a fluorescent light that's buzzing in your office or something like that, it annoys you for a couple of minutes, but then your brain sort of tunes it out. My brain never tunes that stuff out. Like most people aren't thinking about the feel of their shoes tied around their feet at any one time, right? But for me, it's really hard not to pay attention to that stuff. I'm always
I
aware
wonder
of
what
that.
that's called. That's very interesting. I've never
It,
that is not my experience
yeah.
at all. But that's very interesting, and I wonder how you can apply that mutant power. Mutant power. Like if you were on the X-Men, it would just be like you're the focuser. You
I'm
can
constantly
focus on.
annoyed, boy.
No, yeah, just constantly focused, man. You know, like
Yeah.
you just get focused on things, and I mean, they've had some really ridiculous X-Men powers.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like,
Is
I
arm
think
fall
that
off man?
I'm sorry?
Was that an X-Men arm fall off boy or arm fall off man?
No, but is that real? For
That's
real?
a real comic book thing. I didn't know whether he was an X-Man. I thought I don't know which
That
which
can't be
universe he's in.
now I got to look that up real quick. Arm fall off
Yeah.
boy.
It's
Wow,
like,
that just popped right up. Hold
I'm
on one
telling
second.
you.
What? I really thought you were pulling that out of your. Wow, that is. What the fuck? Oh my god!
Yep.
All right, first of all, and it reminded me of another character that I have heard of before. From this, first of all, it's not a Marvel, it's DC, and yes, there's a guy, arm-fall-off-boy, arm fall off boy, who really does pull off his arms.
Yep.
It's pre-Zero Hour, and there's a guy named Matter Eater Lad.
Matter Eater Lad,
Matter.
right? Yeah.
Matter Eater Lad. Say that 100 times.
Some
Matter Eater Lad.
fantastic names here.
It's a great name, and it rolls off the tongue. It's Matter Eater Lad. Matter Eater Lad.
Yeah.
Words can be really fun. And he claims Matter Eater Lad claims he gained his powers through carelessness while holding the anti-gravity. Wait, what? What does it have to do with? Oh, and he's in the Suicide Squad, apparently. Arm fall off boy. He's played by Nathan Fillion, according to Wikipedia.
Wait, really? I mean,
No,
I never saw the show.
No, sorry. According to comicvinegamespot.com. All right, maybe not. I don't know. I don't know, man. But yeah, there's a guy named Arm Fall Off Boy. That is hilarious. And he's like an old school character.
Yeah,
it looks
yeah.
like he was like he just like rips off his arms and then waves them around and beats people with them.
Now, I want to make it clear that I'm not I wasn't aware of Arm Fall Off Boy because of any kind of like OG comic cred or something like that. It was just something that I stumbled upon in a wiki hole, So don't if anyone's listening to this going, "Oh man, he really knows his comics." No. No.
I have a pretty good comic knowledge. I read for many, many years. And I've never heard of Arm Fall Off Boy, but the vastness of the vast mythologies of comics. I mean, it's an endless ocean.
Yeah, there's whatever kind of theme you think a hero or villain might have been or based around. It existed at some point. Like it showed up in somebody's comic somewhere.
Here's a picture of him. Here's a picture of Nathan Fillion as Arm Fall Off Boy. That's for real. That is so for real. That is so.
Which series was that from?
I no clue. No clue. I can't see. Oh no, yeah, Suicide Squad.
From Suicide Squad. From the
That
film?
makes sense because James Gunn is like a nut when it comes to.
Yeah.
By the way, am I coming in? Do I sound like I'm clipping it all? I'm like really, really turned it up hot, so that way you don't have to worry about turning up the gain on your end.
No, you're well in the clear on my end.
Okay, good. All right, that's good. So that was the last time that I watched Meet the Feebles.
So how many times have you seen it, would you say?
Oh, a lot.
A lot, yeah.
I know it well.
Yeah.
I know it pretty darn well. Enough that I was thinking about, I was like meditating on it before, we got on the phone, the horse, the whatever.
Yeah.
And I was going, oh man, yeah, I could talk, that or that or that. Like I remember it pretty well, which is says something.
Well, I am finding the more that I do this podcast, the more the movie fans and filmmakers that I talk to, I'm learning that I am in the minority in that I am not a big rewatcher. Like I have been. Like when I was an adolescent kid, I think I watched Excalibur 17 times over one summer. Like we were
Great movie.
counting. Oh, the John Borman, yeah.
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 I really that is a phenomenal movie. I revisited that was from I watched that a few times in my childhood. Hadn't seen
Mhm.
it in 20 something years and revisited that very recently. Totally forgot Helen Mirren is in it,
Oh yeah.
and just how bloody it is, and just that the ending. It's excellent. It's an excellent movie.
I just I hate, like, I know how this makes me sound. I know what kind of a testosterone drenched man animal it's going to make me sound to say this, but I just want to point out that Helen Mirren is just as hot now as she was in Excalibur in like
She's a
1978
fox,
or
man.
something.
She's
She's
a total
incredible.
fox. She's in a movie that I don't know if you've seen. You got to see this movie. She really bears all in it, in the most wonderful way. It's the cook, the thief,
The wife and her lover?
yeah, his wife, her
His
lover,
wife. Yeah, yeah. That's
and but it's funny when you think about it because you think it's just comma, but it's actually the cook, the thief, his wife, her lover.
I
And it's like this fusion of Stanley Kubrick and Terry Gilliam. And have you seen it?
I have not. It's one of those movies
Oh,
that keeps turning. There's like,
one of my favorites.
I don't know, 20-ish movies. Whenever I start looking at lists of movies that I need to watch, there are some that just keep popping up over and over in all the places where I look. Because I'm not looking at, like, I don't know, whatever, People magazine or whatever, but the
Dude,
sources I
that should
look
be your
at.
top priority. Top priority is the cook, the thief, his wife, her
I will
lover.
dig
It's
that up.
so good.
I saw a screenshot from it recently, and just my jaw dropped. So I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah.
I guess.
Just another film that I can watch. That's a film I could watch obsessively and never ever get tired of watching it.
Yeah.
I could watch it all the way through and then watch it again. I friggin' love it. Mandy too. I've seen
Oh
Mandy
man.
many times. I can watch it endlessly.
You know
Even
what?
at I didn't think I would be able to, but it has an incredible rewatch value for me,
I'm
and
gonna
not
tell.
anything necessarily to do with Cage. It's it's a great example of the there is a lot of story in Mandy.
Yeah,
People
yeah,
don't
yeah.
realize it. There's a lot going on there, and it's just amazing to watch from like a storytelling perspective. I'm going, wow, that's how you tell story about your character without ever saying a word, and it's just like the alcohol problems that
Mm-hmm.
Nicolas Cage has.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's like these little subtle things, like like the liquor's hidden. Why is the liquor hidden? Why would he? And he knows where it's stashed. Or why is he picking up a crossbow called the
Yeah.
Reaper? Because he used to be a very fucking violent dude. Like just like it, like he really paints a picture of who he was, and it like doesn't have to tell you anything. You just
Yeah.
have to either pick up on it or you go, oh, that movie sucked. It had no story. It's one of those two.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I really respect it I really respect it for not giving a fuck.
I loved that movie so much. To date, I've only seen it once. It came through, and if there's a such thing as a regular listener to this podcast, they're going to be annoyed because I've told the story before. But fuck it, I'm going to tell it again. It's my podcast.
Do it.
Mandy came here to Orlando one night for a one-night show, and I wasn't really. I was interested, but not excited about it because all my friends were like, "Oh man, there's a new Nick Cage movie. There's a new Nick Cage movie. He's going to be so crazy." And I thought, okay, I like Nicolas Cage. I don't have anything against him. I think he's a fun guy to watch. And then, like, the night before the movie played, I actually looked it up on IMDb, and I said, holy shit, this is a Panos Cosmatos movie, and you guys never fucking told me. And, like, as soon as I found that out, I immediately bought my ticket online because I lost my mind over Beyond the Black Rainbow. I loved that movie so much. And when I found out that
Okay, so real quick,
Yeah.
here's funny little side note to that. Real quick, I can't. I've tried to watch the Beyond the Black Rainbow 5 times.
Oh no.
I've never made it through once. I've honestly never made it through Black Rainbow. It is unwatchable to me. Unwatchable. And so it's really says something to me about this filmmaker. Is like, I can't believe how much I love one of his films and
Yeah.
can't stand. I fall asleep every time trying to watch Black Rainbow.
Yeah.
I have to see it in the theater. That's the only way to watch it. I feel
Yeah.
like you can't get it home. I'm sorry.
No,
Continue
no.
your story.
No. That was it. I was just like,
Oh.
I loved Beyond the Black Rainbow so much that in the years following its release, I just kept Googling the director's name and not getting anything. He went so long before making another movie. And so
Right.
I felt like betrayed by my friends because they kept saying, "Oh, it's the new Nick Cage movie. It's the new Nick Cage movie." And I was like, "No, it's the new Panos Cosmatos movie. Damn it!" But
And it was Spectre Vision too. It was just like the
yeah,
perfect collaboration of people. Just very, very good. So that's a movie I could watch a lot. And in terms of like, Feebles, like I wrote down a bunch of notes here. I don't know if you do you have anything that to lead us in that you want to say about Feebles and whatnot?
well, I mean, I have a couple of questions I tend to try to hit if it comes up organically, but
Go ahead.
it's not a big deal. I would just
Do it.
first off, in your own words, can you recall the plot of Meet the Feebles?
Yes. Okay. Now I'm really understanding what. Full disclosure, Stephen, I did not get a chance to listen to a previous episode, which is what I usually do to familiarize myself with the format, and I did not do that. So I did not do all my homework. I apologize.
Well, you are not my only deficient student, sir. So I forgive you.
Okay. Okay. So what? Can I? Your question is, do I remember the plot, and what is the plot?
Right.
The plot is okay. So the plot of Meet the Feebles. Basically, the Feebles are a Muppet-style variety hour in a world where puppets. Okay, so not okay. So okay, so a couple things to break down here as I'm like trying to explain the plot because I'm like having these epiphanies. So this is a world that's not only populated by puppets, but they're puppet animals.
Right.
And so this is not actually a Muppet variety hour. It's just a variety hour. To us humans, we're watching a parody of the Muppets called the Feebles, who have a variety show on the stage. I'm not sure if it's broadcasted or not. So it's kind of like this cross between vaudeville and variety show. And yeah, there's no humans in this world. It's just puppets, and puppets are real people to them, but to us they're not. So that's the type of world we're in. And it's basically there's like tons of these, there's just tons of storylines featuring every single, I don't know what you would call it, not like every single issue of the human condition, from like wedlock to addiction to afflictions, like possibly having HIV,
Right.
drug dealing. Like, what do you call all those things? Like, these are the things of humanity. What is the things, Stephen? Help me qualify this.
The tribulations, perhaps.
Maybe like this is like, I really don't want to use the word gutter because, like I just said, like people that have HIV are not gutter, but it's like I hope that's not misconstrued. I just mean, but in general, all of these things, they're like not gutter topics, but like, like prostitution and pornography and like, and again, nothing wrong with pornography, but like, I'm just saying like, what do you, the moral scruples, okay. The moral scruples of society as seen in 1989.
Yeah.
Right. I'm like, how do I'm trying to figure out the right nice way to say all that. I don't know what it is.
Well, I'm not sure what I would like.
Paternity tests, Vietnam vet, heroin junkies.
Right, I forgot about him.
Just everything you could imagine. Overeating, like issues, people with food issues.
There's like mob business dealings as well.
Right, the mafia. So like, it's just like, I guess it's just the
societal
trials and tribulations of the human condition as projected through animalized Muppet-like puppets as they spend 24 hours rehearsing for the variety show that they do, I guess, every week or every night. They're famous. They're kind of celebrities. There's literally a fly that eats shit and writes for some tabloid paper. Yeah. And he just eats shit. He literally is a fly. And so there's like, I guess you could call them parables / they're like, stereotypes or archetypes. Archetypes.
There we go.
Archetypes is the word. Okay. Archetypes of the trials and tribulations of the human condition, put as animals like puppets, and it ends with spoilers, a rampage of a mass shooting. There's a mass shooting where everybody gets killed.
It's
like, it's crazy.
It's almost like Shakespearean in its tragedy. It just happens to be wrapped up in felt and like tawdry, crassness.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It's just hard because, like, again, just to go back to the HIV thing, like back then,
right?
That was considered a problem, and it was considered a low issue if that was the connotation, the stereotype, whatever you want to call it, a wrong stereotype. But this is very much, I think it's good, worth to say, this is very much a movie of its time period.
So that's interesting because that's one of the things I run into in watching these. Like, 80s movies tend to have higher levels of like homophobia in them and things like that.
There's some homophobia. I don't know if it's homophobia, but like the Sodomy song.
I'm thinking about this in my head, and again, it's been a long time since I watched it. I used to do before I started the Sick and Wrong Film Festival, I did just a monthly thing with friends here in town where I would invite everybody over, all my friends over, and watch, some fucked up movie they hadn't seen. Like I did Meet the Feebles, I did Greasy Strangler, I did Zardoz. I just weird movies that I felt like everybody should have to see at one point or another, and like. It wasn't a very long-running series because very soon everybody dropped off and stopped coming over to watch the weird movies at Steven's house. But I did do Meet the Feebles one time. Yeah. And that was within the last 10 years. So I'm hoping that my memory is pretty solid. But when I think about it, I'm not sure that the gay character in this movie is necessarily homophobic. I think he might be just sort of.
No, he's not homophobic.
Celebratory.
He's just a gay fox.
Yeah. I think his character is, I don't know. It's gonna, my opinion. I'm gonna have to face my own opinion when I watch this movie.
He's called an F-bomb, though. He's called an F-bomb,
yes,
and
that is true.
Sings a song called Sodomy,
right?
Amongst phallic, like penis sculptures. I remember this very well, and it was funny. I never picked up when I was little. So the first time I ever saw it, I had heard about it. I heard it was banned in the U.S., and then magically I saw it at a Blockbuster. I was like, holy shit! And I rented that shit immediately. And then I went down to Kim's Music Video on St. Mark's, rest in peace, Kim's Music Video, where I discovered such titles as Necromantic and the like.
Where was that?
My whole education of discovering crazy movies, and they actually had a copy, and that's where I bought it, and I still have that copy, and it's like a treasure of mine, and I'm waiting desperately for Peter to put out those Blu-ray remasters of the first 3 of his glorious immaculate splatter trilogy, of which he would return to form. Peter, do it, Peter.
So I know you've told me this before. Where are you?
Where am I?
Like
here?
What town are you?
So I'm from White Plains, New York.
Okay.
And we sit in Westchester, which is right above the Bronx.
Gotcha.
So I literally sit above the Bronx. I'm about 25 to 30 minutes away from Manhattan with really good traffic. With no traffic, I should say. And if you go about 8 minutes west, you are in the town of Sleepy Hollow, like the Legend of Sleepy Hollow.
So it's a real place.
Yeah, man. And if you go like 8 minutes in the other direction, you're at the Long Island Sound. You're by Long Island. And so I just nestled up here right by the Hudson River. I got the Hudson River on one side. I got the Long Island Sound on the other. And we're in this like V area. And I'm in the city of White Plains, where I struggle and strive to be a regional filmmaker in my making punk rock, micro budget, feature length genre films. And that's me.
Well, this seems like I usually wait till the end of the episode to give you your minute of plug, but you are the the filmmaker behind a feature which is available on Amazon right now called
Can't
Romeo's
get on Amazon.
Distress.
It was taken off
Oh
because of the Amazon
no!
apocalypse. Yeah, I got pulled.
You were part
But
of the
here's the thing.
cull.
Here's the thing. Just to sidetrack real quick about
Oh
that.
shit! I'm so
You
sorry.
know, if you're a micro budget filmmaker and you got your shit pulled from Amazon, first of all, fucking VOD sucks right now. You want to know what this is honestly the answer to all of our fucking problems at the moment. You got to fucking author your own movie. You got to put it on a DVD disc. It doesn't matter if it's Blu-ray or DVD. Put it on a DVD, press it up,
Mail it out of your house.
sell your shit, man. Sell your shit. Call up any brick and mortar mom and pop shop that's still around and make sure that they have your movie in stock, and treat it like you're a punk rocker making a 7-inch, and you wait for that pressing to sell out. And if you're worth your salt and you're able to like make a name for yourself, then your fucking your releases will become sought after and maybe valuable someday. And that's it. That's how you have to think about it. You know, it's not something you're going to make money at right now. It's just something you got to do because, and we, you know, I said that thing to you online about like, you know, we do it because we have to, because this is how we express ourselves, and about putting shit into the world. And so it's a part of the process. And so, you know, you can't get Romeo on Amazon Prime anymore. You can watch it on Screambox.
Okay.
You can watch it on some free ad-supported channels through FilmHub. And you can rent it on VOD at Vimeo, but I don't blame you if you don't, because I hate renting shit on Vimeo.
Well, shit, man. I'm sorry. I feel bad. I was trying to throw you a bone, and I just picked a scab.
No, that's okay,
man.
man. But I have other things on Amazon Prime. But like, yeah, Amazon's just been really sticking it to all us little indies. Fuck them. You know, I'm trying to get my YouTube hours back up. So I can remonetize my channel. That's why I'm, you know, putting all this content on as much as I possibly can.
Yeah.
You know, but where were we? Oh yeah. You were graciously plugging me. Thank you. Yes, I'm in White Plains, New York. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I didn't know. Like you mentioned Kim's. I didn't know. Like I've never been cool. Like I grew up on army bases in Germany, so like I never.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So you're just like Dee Dee Ramone.
Am I? Did he grow up on
Dee Dee
army
Ramone was Dee Dee Ramone grew up on American army bases in Germany, and that's why all those early Ramone songs are like written about, like, you know, there's a lot of German shit in there because.
Oh well, shit! I should have gone into punk rock. I don't know what I was thinking.
But you are familiar with Kim's music video?
No, that's why I was asking.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Kim's was just like this legendary shop in New York on the Lower East Side for music and movies, and you can get like you know, they had the categories by director. So I'm like looking, I'm like, oh my God, this is the filmography of this and this. It just opened up my mind to go in there. I think I was 16 years old and I found Feebles, and I was just like, oh my God. And I bought that shit and I showed it to everybody. I would have just like you, I have viewing parties, and I'd show Meet the Feebles, and everybody affectionately called it a Frumess film. They called trauma movies Frumess film. So a Frumess film, my last name is Frumess.
Mm-hmm.
And a Frumess film is a movie that Jeff watches, and he's showing us this weird, fucked up shit, and we're getting a kick out of it. But we would never watch this on our own. We'd only watch it because we're bored and we're all sitting together, and Jeff's holding us hostage and making us watch this weird shit. So they called Frumess film. So when I was trying to think of like a company of like what I should be, I was like, dude, you make Frumess movies, Frumess films, man. That's it. It's called Frumess films. So that's what I am. So, yeah. So it's like, I would just show Feebles to anybody who would watch. It was like, and that's what we do as genre and horror fans, Stephen. I'm sure you do the same. We become, in Christianity, who's the guy? I'm a Jew. Who's the guy that goes around and preaches Christ? He's like the PR guy for Christ, right? He went around to Greece and everywhere, and he goes, oh, Jesus, he's a great guy. Blah, blah, blah. That's what we become apostles for our favorite films and try to convert people to watch them.
Yeah, I personally, I can attest that I never had a lot of luck with the locals I brought over to my house for my little movie nights. They would say to me, "Oh man, why don't you do like classic movie nights or like 80s movie nights or something, and I'd be like, okay, you can do that. Why don't you do that? I'll come over to your house when you do that. But my thing is these fucked up movies. My thing is let's watch The Holy Mountain this weekend and get drunk, you know? If you're not into that, and it turns out most of them weren't, that's fine. I get that. That's why I quit it and started the festival instead. But yeah, geez, I love taking these circuitous treks. I have my copy of Meet the Feebles is on DVD, and I bought it in a store, and that's the only reason I can tell myself it's not actually a bootleg, because the DVD release that I have is to say it's bare bones would be generous, you know. It's got.
I think you do have a bootleg, actually. I think we both had bootlegs. I don't think it's ever been released properly in the U.S., and I think whoever put it out did not put it out legally, and that's why it is so bare bones. I have the same thing. I have a super bare bones weird release.
Well, shit. Sorry, Peter. I guess we mentioned him a couple of times. This movie, for people who don't know, if anybody's listening to this doesn't know, this movie was directed by Peter Jackson, later of Lord of the Rings fame, and I don't know. I liked The Frighteners a lot. I thought that was a good movie.
I love The Frighteners, and I love that King Kong he did. I think it's a masterpiece. I don't care what anybody says. It's every second, every minute of it is glorious.
You know, the first Peter Jackson movie I saw, I think, and I don't know whether I'm alone on this or what, but the first Peter Jackson movie I saw was actually Heavenly Creatures.
Great movie.
I loved it. It was so fantastic. It's so weird and like, I don't know. It was great. It was
that's like Midgard Peter Jackson. It's like middle era.
Right.
You know, there's Splatter Jackson, then there's like Mid Jackson, then there's like, you know, proto Rings Jackson, which is like Frighteners, and then there's Rings Jackson, and then there's post Rings Jackson. And you know, Jackson. Like
otherwise known as Tired Jackson.
It's like The Hobbit is so ridiculous with some of the choreography. There's like, oh look, there are bricks, and I'm slipping on the bricks as I'm trying to shoot my arrow. Like just ridiculous, such ridiculous.
One of my favorite gifs is Legolas defying gravity to leap from falling brick to falling brick. Yeah.
Right. Yes, you know what I'm talking about. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh shit! Just knocked everything over. Everything's fine. Still recording. All right, good. So yeah, I saw Heavenly Creatures, and then they told me that I needed to see Bad Taste, so I saw Bad Taste, and then I saw Meet the Feebles before I saw Dead Alive or Brain Dead, whichever one you called in wherever you live.
Dead Alive,
yeah. And I don't. Shit. Do you happen to know what order he made them in? Because I know Bad Taste was first.
Yes.
Did Meet the Feebles?
So he made Bad Taste. He made Bad Taste. It took him about 5 or 6 years to make it. He made it for about $11,000. Started in the early '80s and finished it in about '87 with completion funds from the New Zealand government. It was shot on with a Bolex, a crank 'em up Bolex camera, with like what I used in film school. And a lot of the time, you know, he was acting and shooting that movie himself. He created these elaborate dollies and camera jibs that he could operate, or have somebody else kind of like he would time it, and he would have a 30-second crank on the. You get 30 seconds on those fuckers, and they're not sync sound. No. So he's doing all this insane shit. You know, and you know what's funny? You can I watched that movie as a boy, and I'm like kind of like underwhelmed. I'm like, it's great, but like I love Dead Alive more. Yeah. But then you watch it as a filmmaker, and you go, holy fuck, this guy is like a fucking all-star. These are the outliers, man. These guys, these Rodriguez's and these Peter Jacksons and these Spielbergs and these guys, they're fucking outliers. They're these guys who are so single. They have such singleness in their purpose. They're just like, I need to make a movie, and I'm gonna do it with the resources I have, and I'm just gonna fucking do it. It's like they stumble through it. Like they stumble with. It's like what Buzz Aldrin says. Buzz Lightyear. They're falling with style. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like they just do it, and they duct tape, elbow grease, you know, seams and all, man. And so you rewatch it, and you're like, holy fuck. And then he did Dead Alive. No, then he did Meet the Feebles.
Okay, so Meet the Feebles
number
came
2
next.
in '89.
So what?
And
the most amazing. I was curious about that because like, I will confess I've only seen Bad Taste one time. I had a special DVD of it, and then like some classmate of mine borrowed it and disappeared from the face of the earth, so I never reacquired it.
You.
And I think she
Steven's
also took
classmate. Fuck you wherever you are.
she also took my copy
I
of
hope you choke on your copy of Dead Alive. I hope you come out of the shower and it's lying there on the tiles and you slip on it and your head hits the toilet seat and it cracks in two. And as your brains spill out like Peter Jackson's does in Bad Taste, you need searching for a belt to wrap around your skull and keep your brains in your head.
You got to save a little bit because she also took my copy of City of Lost Children.
Oh, it's a her. Well,
Yeah.
fuck that witch. I didn't say the B word. I said the W word. That witch. Terrible.
Yeah. So, but like, what mystifies me is, you know, I when I saw Bad Taste, I thought it was fine enough, but there is such a leap in storytelling ability from Bad Taste to Meet the Feebles. Like, Meet the Feebles has a dozen interconnected storylines running all the time, and they all kind of converge at the end of the movie. And well, at least as I remember it. I guess I should save this for the second half of the podcast. But like,
You're right.
it just seems like such a huge jump in the writing quality from Bad Taste to Meet the Feebles, and I wonder whether that's just like a sign of the limitation of how he was working, you know, nights and weekends for 5 years or whatever to try to get Bad Taste made. And he, I don't know.
Yeah,
had
but
a little
you know,
more.
you have to think about it like this too. You have to think about it like Bad Taste is like essentially a home movie that turned into a feature. That's what it was. By the end of that, he was doing the most insane shit. He had a turntable. He's building miniatures of like that house, and he has it spinning on a turntable, like trying to make it look like it's floating through outer space. And it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And it's just like it's just one of those projects. You know, there's some of these films, they start off as short films and they pick up such momentum and they become longer, bigger projects.
Yeah,
and so I
yeah.
think that's the difference in that format. But I'm sorry, continue.
No. It's I was just now I'm getting really annoyed that I don't have this movie anymore because I feel like rewatching it now, and I don't have Bad Taste. Yeah.
Oh my God. You know, I have it on DVD and I want to watch it and I'm refusing to watch it because I'm waiting for this. Either there are going to be 3 Blu-ray releases or it's going to be a box set. I think Arrow's going to put it out.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Gesundheit.
I think Arrow's going to put it out and it's going to be glorious.
I would like to see that. I would definitely like to see that. I think these 3, like, I don't know. After they deserve the treatment. I know. There's so many movies. Like you keep waiting for Arrow to get around to releasing the fancy versions of these old cult movies that we watched, and the waiting list is long. I understand the list, and they can only produce so many disc sets at a time. But eventually it'll get there. I'm sure it's on their radar. I just wonder.
So the deal is that he's officially said that these movies have been remastered using the same process that he used for They Shall Not Grow Old. So Peter, for those who do not know, Peter Jackson got a hold of thousands of hours of footage, old film cans from World War II.
World War II or World War One?
World War One, sorry. And what he did was he has essentially remastered and digitally scanned and remastered this footage and done all sorts of things, retimed it and changed the speed and brought it up to 24 frames per second. And in some cases was even able to hire lip readers to come in and do ADR and using voice actors. They actually brought the voices back of these people that have been dead for 100 years. And so he took this technology that he developed
to his old movies.
To these. Okay, so I watched it. I went to the Alamo to watch this took my dad, and we're sitting there drinking those delicious root beers on tap. They're the best on tap root beer, and watching They Shall Not Be Old. And all of a sudden the dudes start talking, and we would learn that these are in fact, so they hired lip readers to read what those dudes were saying, discern what was being said, and then hired voice actors to sync up the voices. They would say the words that the scripts based on what was being said in the tape, and then basically redub these things that are lost to time. You'd never imagine in a million years. And that's the type of stuff, Peter Jackson has been revolutionizing filmmaking technology, going all the way back to the Frighteners Weta exists because of the Frighteners' needs. They developed all sorts of just special effects computers and things and computer imaging and different new types of optical printing, and did the same thing for motion capture when it came to Lord of the Rings, and then the same thing with King Kong.
Yeah.
And now here he is at the forefront of documentary filmmaking, and now he's doing it for the Beatles. The Beatles Let It Be is going to be re-released as a Let It Be project, and now he's told us that he has actually gone back, now that he's happy with the technology. He has finally remastered his first 3 films, which means that soon enough, and I'm sure he's got all the goodies, all the trimming, all the treats that have fallen on the ground, and we're going to get to fucking watch that shit. And it's like a feast. I feel like a hungry boy looking into the window as my tummy rumbles, waiting for the delicious pies to come out of Peter Jackson's kitchen and placed on the table so that I might have a slice of the delicious splatter punk disgustigore that he makes.
Well, I'm super psyched about that now. I'm curious, like, did you I already know the answer to this question. You know, Jeremy Saulnier, Murder Party and Blue Ruin and Green Room?
Yes.
So I read some interviews with him, and he was saying that when he made Green Room, he saw the trajectory of his career and where it was going, and he realized, okay, this is basically the last small movie I get to make. And so he really tried to hone it into something fitting of that scope and that size, and that's why it's a nice, tiny, violent punk movie, you know. And I'm a huge fan, by the way, but
love the Green Room. Loved
such a good movie, such a good movie. So I'm wondering, I don't think, like, you can see echoes of it, I guess, but I don't think it's controversial to say that Jackson never returned to his splatterpunk beginnings in the rest of his career, and I wonder whether that's an artifact of the fact that he just got too, big. Like the I don't know. Once you direct the Lord of the Rings, like, it's just going to be giant, sweeping, Hollywood epics from then on out. I don't know. I'm wondering, I guess, whether we're ever going to see another one of these Meet the Feebles or another one of these Dead Alives from Peter Jackson.
Yeah, I think that another filmmaker who has a similar trajectory is Sam Raimi. And you look at Sam Raimi, and he went from doing The Evil Deads. And if you've never seen it, go watch Crime Wave. It was his second film. It was hard to get. It's now out on Scream Factory. And the reason why you want to see this movie, and this does tie into what you said, Stephen, I'm not going on a tangent.
It's fine.
The reason why you want to watch Crime Wave is because you are literally getting to see the boys that made the original Evil Dead for pennies. Not for pennies, it was like $300K, but like just for very low money for what they were doing. You get to see these boys with all the piss and vigor that they had making that Evil Dead, with all the same sensibilities, like, so they have that same mindset, tackling a movie with a couple $1,000,000. So it's like almost like in a way, it's almost like a spiritual adjunct to Evil Dead, even though that it's not a horror film in any way, shape, or form. It's more of like a noir thriller. And the reason why I say that is because, you watch these filmmakers. Actually, no, maybe I'm not saying what I think I'm saying. I was just trying to plug that into Peter Jackson. It's actually the reverse of that, as opposed to what your question was. And I'm just, okay. So let me rephrase what I'm trying to
share.
So Sam Raimi has taken a similar trajectory, but has returned to form. And when he does return to form, here's what I was trying to say. Sorry, now I understand what I was trying to say. And when he does return to form, you can see that Evil Dead DNA just beneath the surface. And he finds ways, and he's found a few times, he's found a few different ways to subversively implement it. And one of those ways was in the second Spider-Man movie. Here he is directing a $100 million follow-up to a smashing success tentpole superhero movie, And there's this whole scene where Doc Ock wakes up with with his tentacles laced in his back,
Thinking about those
and
snap
it goes
zooms.
straight. It just goes full on Evil Dead.
Yeah,
He makes the decision to go straight full Evil Dead, same exact aesthetic. And so here's this guy who hasn't done this style of filmmaking in something like 14 years, right? If you're counting Army of Darkness,
Yeah.
right? 2004, yeah, about 12. Okay, about 12 years, right? And even so, he was doing. You could see some of that aesthetic in The Quick and the Dead. There's definitely some Raiminess, Raimi style, horror Raimi style in that as well. And then he full on dipped his toe back in the water with Drag Me to Hell, which at the time in 2009, I'm going, and I loved it. Did you like it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was a big
I loved
fan.
it. And so at that time, I was floating around this hot take, which was kind of a stupid hot take now that we have Ash and Evil Dead back. But this was at a time where he was never going to make another Evil Dead again. We never thought we were going to get another one. So for me, or a series or anything. So for me, I'm going, this is his Evil Dead 4. This is like this is the closest thing to another Evil Dead movie. And you could see it, especially, even still, it's chock full of CGI. It sucks. The CGI sucks.
Yeah.
It's not age well. But that scene, that scene in the cemetery, when he's burying the old gypsy lady, and he's got to give the button back to her.
Yeah.
It's full on Evil Dead goodness, and you go, wow, there is that filmmaker. And now he's making another one, and so I have faith that PJ is going to go back. And it's funny, The Frighteners was kind of like still like a supernatural genre horror sort of thing that was originally supposed to be a Tales from the Crypt movie directed by Robert Zemeckis, who then turned the project. The Frighteners is actually a secret Tales from the Crypt movie, like Bordello of Blood and Demon Knight. Those are official ones. Another one like that, in case you don't know, is From Dusk Till Dawn, was originally a Tales from the Crypt movie.
I think you just named two movies, The Frighteners and From Dusk Till Dawn, that really, really benefited from being handed to these fringe filmmakers instead of, whatever. Respect to Robert Zemeckis, but I don't think Robert Zemeckis' The Frighteners would have been at least memorable in the way that Peter Jackson's The Frighteners was.
Well, here's the thing. I'm going to completely disagree with that statement. only because, and I don't know when the last time you watched The Frighteners was, but I have watched it several times in recent years. And here's my observation. Again, I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying I disagree with your opinion based on my own view of what I saw. And what I saw was a movie dripping in Zemeckis, starring Michael J. Fox. And I'll tell you, it just moves like a Zemeckis movie. That movie moves just like a Back to the Future film. Swear to God, has the same pacing. It starts off slow, but when they get into the whole thing and they know what's going on and everything, it just turns straight Zemeckis in the same way that From Dusk Till Dawn, and I've always said this about From Dusk Till Dawn. From Dusk Till Dawn is the perfect. First of all, From Dusk Till Dawn is the proto Grindhouse movie. It is Grindhouse before Grindhouse in the sense that here is Quentin and Robert Rodriguez teaming up with Quentin writing and Robert directing, and the first half of the movie is a Quentin Tarantino film, all the way up till they get to the titty twister. It is a straight crime noir done by Tarantino. And then the moment the vampires reveal themselves, all of a sudden it turns into a full-on action desperado in a bar, fighting in a bar, siege, onslaught, Robert Rodriguez action horror film. And so it's like you feel one person's influence, even though he's not the director, and then you feel the director's influence. And I felt that so much for The Frighteners. You feel Peter Jackson, of course, but man, do you feel the Zemeckis. And I think it's the same exact thing that, how people say, oh, Spielberg actually directed the Poltergeist, not Tobe Hooper, because it has that Spielberg feel, even though Spielberg didn't direct it. Same feeling. So I suggest you revisit The Frighteners with that with the idea of Back to the Future in the back of your mind, and maybe you will see what I am talking about. But again, your opinion is your own and very valid. I just disagree with it.
No. That's a solid point. I'm willing to engage in that experiment. It's been a while since I've seen The Frighteners. I'm curious though whether like I kind of see it as three possibilities. You know, the simplest possibility is maybe when Jackson came on board, Zemeckis had already just done so much pre-pro that they handed Peter Jackson this giant binder and said, "This is what you're working off," and he's just didn't have any other choice but to end up with something very Zemeckis-y. Or
That's
possibility two.
That's a very good theory,
Yeah.
actually.
Possibility two, and I don't know about this one. I don't think this one sounds very solid just because of we've seen Peter Jackson's work before this point. But maybe possibility number two is that he was just kind of, whether consciously or otherwise, emulating Zemeckis. I don't know how much weight I give to that possibility. And then I don't know. What do you think? I have a third possibility in mind, but what do you think happened? I haven't read a lot about it, but on Poltergeist, like I was under the impression that Tobe Hooper was in contact with Spielberg during that one.
The rumor is that Spielberg wanted to direct it but could not because of Director Guild DGA rules. There was some reason why he could not direct it on paper. He needed someone to be the face, but there are some people that have said they have literally seen Spielberg, and with Hooper, totally like not like sandbagging Hooper in any way, a beautiful working relationship, like no tension between the two, but some arrangement where sometimes, and maybe it was just respect for Spielberg, but sometimes that Spielberg would just jump in and direct scenes, or sometimes, just that Spielberg was always on set. This was something Spielberg really wanted to have his imprint on, but could not claim the director's chair. And Spielberg, I guess, had enough of or had enough humility to go, that's okay. Let Hooper,
He can have this one.
Hooper, and I'll just put I'll influence it however I can. And I don't know what the truth is, and I've heard evidence to both things. But the one thing that I will say is I think it's a beautiful collaboration, blending of those two people, in the same way that I think the collaboration between Zemeckis and Peter Jackson was absolutely beautiful and turned over something like The Frighteners, and particularly gave us a character like Agent Dammers, FBI psycho, who steals the show. I mean, it's the best part of the movie. And it's like, you go, oh yeah, Jeffrey Combs, Herbert West Reenter. It's like it's just like another friggin' badge on that dude's belt of like amazingness. And it's just a phenomenal film. But you mentioned earlier, Meet the Feebles, that there's a jump in storytelling. And here's something that you may or may not have known. This was a revelation to me that I read a long time ago. I don't know the details, but Meet the Feebles actually was not a movie. It was a TV show.
So
they were shooting a pilot.
Okay. Jesus.
And what happened was,
what's TV like in New Zealand?
Yeah. It was for TV, or maybe it was a made for TV special or something.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be made. It was supposed to be some sort of television. It was not meant to be a feature length cinematic film. And so maybe the reason why it's structured with the stories the way that it is because that's the DNA of its TV origins.
Yeah, it was,
and it got turned into a movie.
That's interesting. That I mean, like, that makes sense to me. Yeah, like maybe they had kind of a series Bible sort of sketched out, and that made it easy to drive all these different stories. It also makes me just wonder what the hell TV is like in New Zealand. Like, how would they, like, what would you have to do to the movie Meet the Feebles to make it playable on American television? You'd have to neuter it. You'd have to completely chop so much out of it, I think.
Yeah, but that stuff might have gotten injected into it
You think so? Like,
as they started to realize it was going to become a feature.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, Meet the Feebles and Degrassi actually have a lot in common. And that's what I was trying to say initially when I like feel like I put my foot in my mouth and saying that it's like gutter problems, because it's not gutter. I hated that I even said that. What I mean to say is that it's like Degrassi problems, you know, these problems of the human condition of like, you know, but Degrassi, it's about pregnancy and drug use and running away and, you know,
man, that's a bunch of stuff in Meet the
gay
Feebles, too.
and blah, 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 and all this stuff, like issues, social issues.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to say. Social issues. And
As filtered
so
through the
this
lens
is like
of,
the Degrassi,
Yeah.
morally bankrupt Degrassi with Muppets. God, what a genius idea. I used to always, when I would describe it to people, I just say it's the Muppets on crack.
Yeah.
You know, but you have like, one of my favorite things that stayed with me forever is you have a frog from that fights in Vietnam, but he talks like Richard Nixon.
Yeah.
And he always says, I need to have a talk. Or he'd be like, thank you for your cash. And you had, and the hedgehog, Robert the Hedgehog, he talks like Elmer Fudd, which was weird.
Is he the oh god, is he the panty sniffer?
No, that was the anteater.
Oh, the anteater, that's right.
who melts from sniffing borax because what the hell is the name of the Bletch.
Oh,
Bletch
the
Walrus.
producer, right? The big yeah. Okay.
And I'll never forget, like I can still remember the first time watching this movie, and I remember Heidi the hippo knocking on the door, and it cuts to Bletch banging his secretary, who's a cat.
Right? She's so tiny.
The first words out of his mouth, he says, "Oh goodness, I was just about to pop my cookies." And then there's like a little dancing sparkly fish that's like, "Mr. Bletch, I'd like to do my number for you." And he goes, "All right, son, you got me." And he puts a light on him, and the little fish is like, "Oh, I'm a little fishy." And then Bletch is like, he's like, "Oh, I have a bad tooth," and he like eats the fish. He just straight up eats the fish and then throws him up, and he's like melted. Like it's just so. And here's the thing. Here's the most fascinating thing to me about Feebles. We just talked about all these social issues. Social. Wow, that's the word I was looking for. Social issues. Social issues. You see all these social issues. Some of them are very serious. Some of them are very, but everything's treated super tongue in cheek, super campy, super exploitative, super un-PC, gloriously so. And now here's my question for you, Stephen.
Mm-hmm.
Is everything that happens in that movie like more okay because it's happening to puppets in the same way that the censors let From Dusk Till Dawn have as much blood as it did because they made the blood green instead of red, which wasn't a problem for the censors.
That makes me roll my fucking eyes. The thing about the blood. I think that it's for me personally, if you took Meet the Feebles and somehow snapped your fingers and it was replaced with a human cast, it was the exact same movie just with a human cast, I might have watched it a couple times, but it certainly wouldn't have burned itself in my brain the way it did.
Really? I think it would burn itself into my brain no matter what, because the story is just so insane. I'll tell you, it would be harder to watch as Heidi the hippo is mowing down puppets. She's shooting out the kneecaps of a giant elephant trying to save its baby, which is a hybrid of a chicken and an elephant.
Yeah.
I need a paracetamol. As the mother chicken gets shot to shit. And mind you, like, the gores, it is so fucking gory. By the way, you can see one of the aliens from Bad Taste in the crowd.
Yeah.
It's so fucking gory. And there's a warthog. There's that warthog. He's like Bebop from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And like, there's the fucking whale. I forget his name. Mr. Big, I think, or something.
Yeah, when they
drive a car through his stomach, rip him open on the other side. They make the anteater snort borax, and he melts and he melts into nothing.
I don't know. I
Just
think
a crazy fucking movie.
yeah. If it were okay, so I am a sucker for the juxtaposition of like childlike things and grotesque things. Like just as an example, maybe this is because I'm an old man now, but my favorite video game remains Wolfenstein 3D, right? The old 1992
I love
movie.
that. I used to play that for hours.
Yeah, it's so awesome. To me, like, I love how you have this really brightly colored, simplistic. Like, if it weren't for the fact that you were shooting people and there were corpses and Nazis and monsters running around, it would look like a child's game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I loved seeing, bloody bodies laying on the ground rendered in that kind of simplistic 4-color palette. I love when you mix and I'm a sucker for them. I guess at this point, what was that movie that came out? Shit, I don't know. There's like a movie that came out a few years ago that was about Muppets, like murder in.
Oh, Happy Land Murders.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, at this point, the idea of Muppets doing gross adult stuff is kind of hackneyed, I guess. And I didn't see that movie. I wasn't really interested. It didn't look like it was made by people who loved Muppets.
Yeah.
But you take Feebles, and this is something where, like, I don't know, you have this juxtaposition, like I said, of the incredible gore and the violence and the adult topics, and it's all being done by these Muppets. But at the same time, that's not the gag, Like, it's not. I think we talked about this before when we were at Genre Blast together. It's like, for me, I think a lot of filmmakers take the hook for their movie, right? They take whatever the hook is for the movie, and they expect that to be enough to carry the movie through, I don't know if I'm articulating this very well, but you could have. I think the Happy Land Murders, or whatever it was called, was a movie that said, okay, we're going to take a detective story and populate it with Muppets, and that's enough. That's enough to make this interesting. And Peter Jackson could have said, all right, I'm going to take this variety show melodrama, behind-the-scenes melodrama, and populate it with Muppets, and that would have been enough. And
social issue melodrama. That's what it is. Sorry. Social issue melodrama. Thank you. Go ahead.
I just kicked the cat because he was hiding behind my foot, and I didn't even notice. Sorry, cat. Anyway, but they didn't. Like, it was so much more. It wasn't just puppets performing this social melodrama. It was puppets performing this social melodrama and then just running it so far out into left field, into the realm of just utter, PCP insanity. I don't know that. I don't think that it would have hit for me. I'm not saying it wouldn't have been a good movie, but without the puppets, I don't think it would have landed as strongly as Feebles did for me.
It wouldn't have been as odd, that's for sure.
Right.
It would have been just more of a straight melodrama.
Right. It makes me think about, like, Kids, the movie Kids. Like, I loved Kids. I
love Kids. Actually, funny enough, I almost, because I saw it was streaming for free, officially, like, not like illegally, like,
right.
Like, streaming for free through this thing. And I almost messaged you and was like, dude, let's do Kids instead. And then I was like, no. I really want to watch Feebles, man. But I almost sent you a message today. I'm going to I haven't seen Kids in years. Yeah. I'm dying to rewatch Kids because even though it was a little past my time, I kind of lived that in a much less intense way. Much less intense way, but like kind of had that sort of existence for a certain time in my life. It's a very like nostalgic film for me. Yeah. And that time as a 15-year-old boy. And so it was like, it was after my time, Kids. But it was I was 15. It was 2001, so it was about 6 years later. But it just has that special place for me because I don't know. It just, yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, it would be more like kids. It would be much
Yeah.
more like kids.
Yeah,
That's
and
an
I think
interesting observation. Didn't think about that.
the presence of the Muppets, and I keep saying Muppets. That's like a trademark. They're puppets, whatever. The presence of the puppets allows me to enjoy the shit that they're suffering, right? Like,
Right. Yeah, it makes us feel, that's the brilliance of it. You don't feel guilty because it's happening to Muppets. It's happening to puppets and
Right.
not to people. And if it was people, suddenly, and I don't know, again, I don't know how I'll feel watching the mass shooting after all the mass shootings that have happened in recent years. Who knows how I'll feel watching it. I personally, for me, like, the thing that really, I can watch just about anything apart from, I detest, I'm not a guinea pig guy. I don't like to watch, I really am not a fan. Here's the thing. I'll watch the goriest thing in the world. I mean, just pure mutilation, as long as there is a narrative and it is a significant narrative to be had. I will not watch it for the sake of watching it, like the way some of these extreme things are. That's where I just get off the train. In the same way that I don't like true crime either. But for me, so I'll watch anything, pretty much anything. And I've seen one guinea pig that I really liked, which was Mermaid in a Manhole, because it actually had a plot. And it was, and it wasn't like gore based the way the other ones were. It's gory, but it's not like, it's about a mermaid. It's not about like just a girl strapped to a bed being like disassembled in a brutal way, which I just have no interest in watching that shit ever. So, but the thing that I can't stomach, maybe especially after becoming a father, I can't stomach like violence or even just bad things happening to children. Even like bad, like a children being put in a foster home or an abusive situation. Like I can't, like that is the thing that really deeply is upsetting to me, and I can't watch it. But I'll watch anybody get a fucking, their fucking head chopped off, or fucking, their intestines pulled out through their anus, like whatever. Doesn't matter to me. And but what I'm curious to know is how am I going to feel? I do feel, that shooting stuff. I'll tell you, did you see Daniel Isn't Real?
Yeah, I just watched that really recently, actually. Yeah.
Okay, I loved it, and that opening scene was dreadful.
Oh man,
dreadful to watch.
Yeah,
I mean, just absolutely. You know why? Because it's so fucking real. It's so real. You know what really got to me? Have you ever seen Megan is Missing?
No, but I've heard that's a movie that hits people pretty hard.
The acting is terrible. The filmmaking is shoddy. But the subject matter is so real and really happens to real people.
Yeah.
And
is it about trafficking?
This movie deeply, I'll never watch it again. I watched it one time. This movie deeply affected me. It's at the end, it gets so intense and disturbing that it's almost like comedically, you almost have to like laugh at how intensely disturbing it is, because you just go, it's like the filmmaker's literally trying to he's like just trying to like torture you in terms of like how ridiculously extreme it gets. But that's not even the thing that got to me. The thing that got to me, there's a single thing that happens, and what it does, it's the aftermath. And what it does is it's not what they show you, it's what they don't show you. Your mind does all the fucking work. And in that way, because there's really, I mean, it's a pretty, you know what, I'm like totally fucking, you just watch it. Just watch it once.
Yeah, I think it's on like fucking Hulu or something. It's on one of those.
That's where I saw it on Hulu years ago. And it's combined, it's true story. 4 true stories combined into one fictional narrative. So every element of that is based on a true case that really happened to people. And so for me, and it's literally just about the dangers of the internet, man. That's what it is. And it's so fucking real. And that, to me, I will take Meet the Feebles. I'll even take a Serbian film. And a Serbian film, I watched a Serbian film. I'll never watch it again, I don't think. I don't think I ever need to see it again. I have no reason to watch it. It just, even like that's the newborn porn shit, the ending. Talk about just, oh God, like it just, that's where I really, really, really draw my line. But like, Feebles is like, yeah, it's puppets. So it's like, who cares, man? It's not people. You know what? You know that thing called the uncanny valley?
Yeah.
So it's like the reverse of the uncanny valley, right? Like
Yeah.
you're not as affected, or you're not thrown off because it's not happening to a real person. Your brain doesn't process it. It processes it like a cartoon. We see Bugs Bunny throw an anvil on someone's face, and we're totally cool with it.
Right.
So
Yeah. It would be tough. I'm wondering. I'm thinking about kids now, and like you don't have to answer this. Like you can tell me to piss off or whatever. But how old is your oldest?
oh, he's 4.5.
Oh, okay, 4.5. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize they were.
And
So
I have a
close
1-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
And yeah, and you know what? As a parent, I weep for the children.
Yeah.
I know it sounds crazy. I weep for the children. I look at my children. I look at how sweet they are. I think about the movies I watch sometimes and the things that are in them. And I think that these happen to real kids. And I look at how sweet and innocent my children are. And I think about all the innocent children in the world, and not to get like super like down on what should be a fun discussion about Meet the Feebles, but it just goes to show you, like, this is the shit. This is for me, the gore horror gourmet who loves all the fucked up shit and can watch a rape revenge movie
Right.
and yada yada yada. It's like, this is the shit that like makes me recoil, makes me shudder, makes me cringe. Same thing with like The Girl Next Door. I watched The Girl Next Door, and I was like, I never want to see anything like that again. I'm like, why did you make this movie? What was the point of this?
Yeah.
This really happened to a real fucking person. I don't need to see this. Like, why couldn't you I'll watch Megan is Missing because it's like a fictionalized story based on real shit. Why not just make this up? Like, you could have made something out of this. Like, instead of showing us what really happened to this person. The flip side of that is something like Waco, where these are events that really happen to people, and by watching it, you are almost honoring their memory because you are bearing witness to things that they actually suffered through. And so it's like, by watching their suffering, you are remembering them and not forgetting their story. And it's so there's like, so I feel like there's an honor to that when it's done tastefully and well. And I thought Waco was done so well because it just they didn't treat it like, it wasn't exploitative at all. It was very just sort of like what happened. And I just really dug that.
Yeah, you remind me, like, I know we should be talking about felt exploding into, piles of gore and stuff like that, but you got me thinking now. Do you remember, okay, so there was a controversy a couple years ago because there was some kind of horror festival where they were screening a movie, and I don't remember, this is what's awful, I don't remember the name of the movie, I don't remember the name of the festival.
Horrorhound Film Festival. You're talking about the dude who stood up at a podium and he was basically like, yeah, I had to teach women how to be raped or something. Or he was like,
is that the one?
Yeah, oh no, he was talking about how it was his privilege. I saw the video.
Yeah.
We had some mutual friends who I won't name them. They were very upset about it.
Right.
And they really made a stink about it, like rightfully so. Like they you know what? They were whistleblowers. They whistleblowed on this shit. Because they were getting awards at a Horror Hound and like getting accolades. Not that everybody received them nicely, because this guy gets up there and basically is talking about how he got to rape women. That's what he said.
Right.
I got to rape women. I got to, like, as if it was a freebie. I got to simulate myself raping a woman. And boy, did the Horror Hound Film Festival received the backlash. Those guys received significant backlash. I don't know if the award was taken away, but it was pretty freaking fierce. But that's what I'm talking about. That's the type of material I'm talking about. Like, why are you recreating like this very true? And then here's the thing. Here's the perfect example of when it's done right, where it's both super fucking extreme and dark and all that fucking shit that you clearly are fucking like want to fucking masticate over.
Mm-hmm.
And yet at the same time is done in such a fucking excellent, tasteful way. Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, where yes, it's based on a real dude and a real case, but it's just the material is handled so well. It's treated so seriously in the most serious way. And talk about a movie. There's an experience. I watched Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer as a teenager and thought it was fucking waste of my time. Whatever, could give a fuck about it, you know. And then I watched it again maybe 20 years later, and I was like, I watched it as a filmmaker, I watched it as an adult, I watched it as someone with 20 more years of life experience. I went, holy fuck, is this a movie?
Wow.
This is absolutely insane. It's insane. And then you have a movie like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, based on a fucking ton of real shit that happened, but totally fictionalized and totally presented as real, and works so much better than you could ever imagine. I'm just saying, like, there's no reason. I don't need to see that Manson shit. I don't care about it. That's why I loved Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I love that they fucking gave her a happy ending for once, instead of all this fucking, like, they didn't even show Charlie. I love that. I was so happy. You know, and I'm really so very careful and specific about true crime. It just really bugs me to no end.
Wait, my cat is eating my XLR cable. Would you get the fuck out of here? Hey,
They love those. I'm not joking. That's a phenomenon. Cats love eating XLR cables.
Get out of here. Go play with Jen. Fuck off. Anyway, so the reason I brought it up, my first short film got into a festival that I went to. I mean, it got into a bunch of festivals, but that's not my point. Anyway, shut up, Steven. Jesus. It got into a festival, and I don't want to out the festival because I'm about to talk about how uncomfortable it was. But I went to the festival, and I didn't realize this was very early in my like festival experience, and I didn't realize that the festival focused, like its big specialty was, I guess people call it extreme horror. Where, 90% of the movies that they played during this festival were very low budget, very lo-fi movie, like short horror films with basically pornographically filmed violence against the bodies of women. That was just their specialty. And I mean, I guess it's my fault for not having known that beforehand, but when you talk about those kind of movies where it's, women having their breasts sliced off and being penetrated by drills and shit like that, the filmmakers and the fans will defend it in a certain way by saying, like, look, we're just putting the horror up on screen, right? And depending on how cynical you are, maybe you want to believe them, but the truth is, the fucking sense of glee that permeated the room while these movies were playing on the screen made me really uncomfortable. And that's the same impression I got about that story about the horror hound thing. It's just like, you filmmaker, you can say, that I'm just a horror filmmaker. I'm just trying to make violent images. I'm trying to show how bad this is or whatever. But we can tell you're getting off on this. You're delighting in this shit that you're creating, this way that you're getting to dominate and create these really sexualized violence, sexually violent scenes and stuff like that. Anyway, I don't know. And I guess if I'm gonna try a really sweaty segue, my whole point is that I can watch that kind of stuff happen on puppets. And it's fine.
Right.
It's okay. Like, nobody...
Bring it back around to the puppets. It makes puppets adds a buffering layer between the disturbing content and what people... between disturbing content and the audience.
Right.
That's
right.
what it is. That's what it is. It's like staring into the sun but wearing sunglasses, and the sunglasses are the puppets, and it makes it easier to stare at the sun. And for that, I think it's honestly, I think it's ingenious, man. And I think that they were really on something. I wish upon wish that we get this release. I hope we do.
Yeah,
I'm honestly just talking about it so much. I can't wait to revisit it now with that, because I've never thought about it like that. This is the first time I've had this like epiphany that like about the social, what did we call them? The social issue melodrama.
Yeah, social melodrama. Yeah.
Yeah, the social melodrama issues. I've never thought about that, like the relationship between the social issues and the fact that it's happening to puppets. And so now I'm like really, really curious to go back. And I'm really curious to watch it when it comes out on Blu-ray, because there's so much detail. There's so many things going on in those sets.
Yeah.
There was so much tender loving care put into this the production design of this thing.
And I'm pretty sure
I'm dying to see it, like something that's not like this fuzzy DVD encoding.
Yeah, I'm sure. Now that I've just having said it out loud and heard it from you, I'm certain that the DVD that I'm going to watch is a bootleg, because it's just so muddy. Like,
it's terribly muddy.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, we both listen. We may have both legally purchased it as like, especially if you purchased it a long time ago, before the age of real torrenting. You go, I would like to purchase a copy of this movie, sir. Here is my 3 cents, and you like give the money, and you take the copy off the shelf, and there's nothing to show that it's a bootleg. There's nothing on my copy that looks like a bootleg,
Yeah. And there were big studio releases that I bought that were just as bare bones in terms of features and things like that, and like not even having inserts inside the case, but at least they had the decent screen quality on them. There's a filmmaker, I don't know if you know him or not. I'm going to have to look this up. I don't know what his series is called off the top of my head. I'm going to pull this up before I publish this episode. But there's a filmmaker named Greg Kovacs who has a...
Never heard of him.
He's got a series of shorts on YouTube, and I will definitely link them when I put this out. And I've only seen the first one. It's called Fun. They're basically little Sesame Street segments with a human woman and a puppet. And in the first one, like... it's stuff kind of like in the same vein as Meet the Feebles, because in the first one she ends up like slicing the puppet's skin off, and there's just like a
puppet to kill.
No, it's not called that. I swear,
that's another one. That's a Canadian show, Puppets Who Kill. Check
Puppets
that out too.
Kill. I'll check that out. You know what? Well, I can vamp here for 1 second. Poppy Seed Place. That's what it's called.
Oh, okay. I'll check that out.
And I will post it in this episode when it goes up. Poppy Seed Place, but it's fantastic. And if you like Meet the Feebles, I think you're gonna like Poppy Seed Place a lot.
Oh, I'm a sucker for anything that I'm a sucker for really adult animated films.
Yeah.
And I'm a sucker for like anything like Ralph Bakshi. I like that stuff. I love heavy metal. I love rock and roll.
Yeah.
And then anything puppet. Like I love that stuff, and I felt like Happy Land Murders was like totally trying to cash in on something that Feebles had done years before, and I rolled my eyes as I watched it. I just was like,
yeah. This is gonna sound weird. I saw Heavy Traffic when I was a kid, like under 10.
I've never seen Heavy Traffic, man, and American Pop. Those are the two I haven't seen.
So I bought, much later in life as a grown-up, I bought a DVD of Heavy Traffic, and honestly, I have never put it in the player. I've probably owned it for 20 years. I've just been kind of nervous about it. I never popped it in. I mean...
no, there's only one you should really be nervous about, and... which I'm not even going to say here.
Right.
It
doesn't have a name that you can say.
About. And I did buy that and watch, because I had to see what it was. And maybe it's just because I'm a white dude, but like I totally did not get that shit. And it's made by a fucking white Jewish guy. So I'm like,
right.
I did not get that shit at all. I did not understand that movie. I don't know why Barry White and Scatman Crothers are in it. I don't understand it. I don't. I need someone who's a real film intellectual to explain it to me, so that I do understand it. And now it kind of just sits on my shelf. And I'm just kind of like embarrassed to own it, but I own it because I bought it.
Right over it when you're walking past your shelves, right? Yeah.
It's not really a title you want to see on someone's shelf.
No, it is not. I think they had was there a sanitized title that they released it under? Like somebody tried to...
I don't know, but I'd much rather own that one, I guess, maybe than this one.
At least it wouldn't be
kind of
like emblazoned on the case.
How did this get made, man? I mean, like, I understand Felix the Cat. Felix the Cat, like, again, uses animals as a way of like, pushing the boundaries on these things by using animals to do it. And Heavy that title, that other title,
that other Ralph Bakshi movie that like people who know are listening to this going, don't say it. God, just don't say it. Don't say it. Yeah, don't worry. We're not going to say it.
I'm not saying that on the air. No.
Yeah. So I've never tried to acquire that one. I'm curious. Did you see it on a shelf physically
It was
one
on
day?
Amazon, man.
Oh, you bought
It
it?
was on
Okay.
Amazon, and I was on a quest to see every Ralph Bakshi animated film.
Well, maybe I'll do a
And I
Zoom
was
and you can
curious, and I
watch.
was like, "Hey, let me watch it. I'm gonna watch it." It's like, it doesn't, like, I've never really read much about it. I don't really
Yeah.
know what people, like, the connotations are behind it, but I had to see what it was about. And I mean, he's coming. I know, like, I guess he's coming from, like, this mindset of, like, a person from that's born. I think he was born in the 30s or 40s,
Yeah, yeah.
and I just people
It's
are.
just a very different. Yeah, like
I
it's.
mean, here's the thing about art. Sorry,
Yeah.
go finish what you were going to say. I
Oh, I
talked
was just
over
gonna
you.
say it's easy to say that a thing is a product of its time. I think
Yes.
that's an easy defense, and I'm never really comfortable with it. And also in the
Oh,
case,
really?
yeah, I mean,
Let's take this. Let's take this. I'll take that that counterpoint, because I actually feel the opposite. But go ahead,
yeah,
state your case, and I'll state mine. Go ahead.
I just feel like people know. I don't know. It's hard for me to say these days because my faith in humanity has been plummeting lately. But like, I want to believe that people know what's wrong when they're doing it. Like I don't know. You see the photo of fucking Jackie Coogan at that lynching when he was young. And like all the photos of the lynchings from that time period, like everybody, all the white people in those photos are just beaming at the camera. They're just like grinning and staring straight at the camera, unashamed, holding their faces up. And I just think, you knew, like, this, some part of you, something in you knew that this wasn't right. And so I don't know. I'm just never really comfortable with the defense. I feel like you shouldn't need, like, you hear some heartwarming story about how some racist guy was, had some show of humanity made to him by a black person, and then suddenly he decided that black people were okay. And you're like, oh, well, it's too bad that all racist white dudes don't have some black person come and save their lives or save their houses or whatever, I don't know. It's not a real well constructed position. It's just I'm always sort of leery when I hear that product of its time defense. But I'm very curious to hear your thoughts.
So, in my opinion, and I'm sorry to say, I actually I kind of have a hard out around 11-ish.
Oh, sure.
So, are there more questions that you
No,
had?
I think we've covered everything. I think we've done everything.
Good.
The only thing left for the episode is if you want it, your minute of plug. If you'd like to.
No, I'm good. I got it. I got it already. I don't need it.
Okay.
I think we talked about me long enough. Although I will say, I do want to say one thing though. To quickly harp back on what we just talked about.
Sure.
So my newest film is a rape revenge film.
Oh, is it?
And yeah, totally. And it deals with rape, and and it deals with I wrote I even wrote I wrote this character who says the F word a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I treat the F word like it's the N word. And and I even had a gay friend of mine read it and let me know his thoughts. I wanted to hear his point of view as I was crafting this very extreme material. I made great changes to the story because I took certain things into consideration that I hadn't previous.
Yeah.
But I felt like this was just a story that I just thought was really interesting. It's not something that's really so I guess this is my plug. My new story is a rape revenge film, and it's not from a man raping a woman's perspective. It's from a man raping another man. And it's sort of done vicariously for sexual pleasure and whatever, control and all the rape connotations that come with rape, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it's been very interesting sort of tackling this material because it has to be done in the right way, and it has to be done, it's all about the story. The thing that happens in a flashback, and Um, it's just, it's something that that I've just had to get a lot of opinions about as I've crafted it over the years, because it went from this really raw place of like, this needs to be toned down and sort of crafted more, and I need to get some input from people who might find this material sensitive. And so like then coming to the people, and being like, hey, I use this word a lot, like how does that, like, do you think that it's valid in this context? And like listening to someone who's suffered from like, or that word has afflicted their people,
Yeah.
and listening to them and their voice and what it means to them and how it should be used, and how do you treat that word when treat the word like it's a loaded gun. The word is only meant to be said when the camera's rolling, and in rehearsals it's just the F word, and trying to give the respect that you're not respecting the word, but giving respect to the heaviness,
right, the weight
of what
it.
that word means to people. A lot's changed, man. I mean, you look at like a movie like Cabin Fever, and you're like, the character's like, don't be so gay, and it's like, that used to be a thing. That used to be very normalized, very popular thing to say.
I was absolutely guilty of it when I was a kid. I mean,
man, me too. I'm not gonna lie. I think a lot of us were. But the point is that like, times have changed. And here now, this brings me to my point of my counter argument to you. And this is a great way for us to land this airplane. In that, so is Cabin Fever an evil movie now? No, it's not. It is a product of its times. Almost everything is a product of its time, or almost everything is valid as a product of its time, I should say, meaning that like it should not be censored just because it is what it is, but it should be watched. And I think Disney, we can shit on Disney all we want, but let me tell you, they do this thing at the beginning that I think is so, and yes, they censor their shit, but whatever. My point is that there are some things that are just unavoidable in censoring. And so they put this disclaimer at the beginning of like, this movie is a product of its time.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that movie is right. And it doesn't necessarily mean that movie is valid. It just means that it needs to be watched within this context. And that's why it is what it is. In the same way that the swastika and the Confederate flag, like, I don't want to see these symbols of violence on the street, but they belong in a museum.
Yeah.
They should not be destroyed.
No.
They should not be left unseen. They need to be put in their context of where they belong, and they belong in a museum. And it's the same thing with watching movies. There's so many movies. So it's like, what? We just cancel every movie because it doesn't align with our views? No, we don't. What we do is we understand. And what it does is it actually educates us. We get educated. We decide that we go, wow, this was the way of thinking back then. This was socially acceptable. And what it does is it allows us to contrast how much things have changed.
Yeah.
And so as we talk about how bad things have gotten, we also can look at how enlightened we've become. It's like true. We've become quite enlightened about many things. If you told someone 20 years ago that the F word was the same as the N word, they would have laughed in your friggin' face.
Yeah.
And now today, like, that is like some heavy-handed shit to say to someone. You can't, like, it's not like, about like what college kids be like, don't be a, and that's the voice that I write from with the character in my movie, Wash Away. This voice from probably, around 2000, maybe 1999, that time when it was totally acceptable to use that word as like, it was like the connotation for a negative thing. Don't be a F, or you're being so gay. Like this way of like talking. And why have I written it with that? Because it's true to the character from that time period and what it is. And, that's just what it is. But it has to be done. It has to be done the right way. It has to be done with sensitivity. And when we watch these movies from a long time ago, we have to watch them with their context and understand what they are.
Yeah,
That's why I think it's okay to say context of its time.
no, I'm with you. I agree. I'm with you. The only thorniness I think from the issue, and I know about the, I guess we can put a pin in it, but like the only thorniness that comes up for me is the worry that you take a movie like, I don't know, I mean, even like Revenge of the Nerds, which is a movie that contains sex crimes. You know, it contains a rape scene.
What about 16 Candles?
And yeah, okay, so you take a movie, you take movies like these, and
Soul Man.
so, oh my God, Soul Man! I remember
Soul Man. But here's the thing. Here's
do
Soul
you-
Man is the perfect example. Let's look at Soul Man for a minute. Soul Man was made in the late 80s, right? And at this time, that was considered a mainstream
Right.
comedy
Those
starring
were-
C. Thomas Howell.
James
That
Earl
was
Jones was
acceptable.
the
That was
teacher
an
in that
acceptable
movie.
thing.
Yeah. I
It
think
gives us a context of the time.
what I'm worried about, and I don't think there's an answer for what I'm about to complain about or worry about. I don't think there's a way. I think the danger is in watching these old things without any context. I think about like a 17-year-old kid now getting his hands on, working his way through the Ralph Bakshi compendium, and he gets to that one movie, right? And he pops it in, and
The movie that shall not be named.
that shall not be named, right? And he just doesn't have anybody there to sitting next to him saying, okay, these things are problematic for these reasons, you know? And I don't know what the solution is. You can't attach a pamphlet to every movie that goes out. You know, you can't say, make sure that you only watch this with your social studies teacher or whatever, right? So I don't know what the answer is. I'm just worried about people exposing themselves to these things without taking the time to find that context.
Yeah, but that's like, but that's, I mean,
No, I'm not suggesting we get rid of them.
But that's the thing. Like, we can't be responsible.
Sure.
It's not. But I think that's just like I don't know how someone gleans that. I don't know how someone earns that. I mean, in the same way that all I know is that when I watched movies like that, whatever it may be, or I'm watching some old movie from the 40s and like or they're using the C word for someone who's black, like, or whatever, they're using the other N word, not the slightly less bad, I guess, N word, if you know what I mean. I don't know if that's, I don't even know if it's bad. I'm just not saying it because I'm a white person.
Yeah. That's the safe way to go about it.
Well, it's the respectful. I think it's just out of respect, and this is where I like to throw down the Jew card too. Like, hey, minority here, try to like, exploit that intersectionality. But I'll tell you, man, like, Jews and blacks, man, we got a lot of shared sort of friggin', history and, whatever. But my point is that I don't think it's there's nobody's responsibility. It's the only person's responsibility is that person watching that movie to understand its context and understand what it is. And if anything, it's a great tool because people, like I said, people look at like, they're watching like just something. And you know what? It's not like a movie like Birth of the Nation, which is like overtly like, the KKK are heroes. It's more like movies, just like a movie from the 50s or the 60s or the 40s, where it's just some like a minority or an ethnicity comes in or is a certain, socioeconomic, standard or talks a certain way or acts a certain way. And it's just like, just so matter of fact.
Right. It's just accepted. It's just, that's how it goes.
Yes. Yeah. And then we can look at that and go, wow, that's crazy. Yeah. And that used to be life. I mean, we forget that in this country 50 years ago, I mean, like we were kind of like an apartheid country, man. There were water fountains for these people and there were water fountains for these people, man. Like, it's like, and then it's like, only a few years later, everybody's like, oh my God, South Africa. It's like, did you not remember that like the South, the 60s in the South, like you could not be this or you could not be this. And the only people that had the fucking balls were the Beatles, who were like, fuck no, we play to integrated audiences only. They were touring the South. This is in the early 60s. And they were told, there's these places and these places you can, and they're like, no, we play to everyone, because they were English and they were not from, they were, in many ways more enlightened than anybody in the South, you know, in that sort of sense. But yeah, man, I don't know. I think watching something within its context is totally valid. It's still art, man. You can't.
Yeah, no.
Art is not a fact, man. It's still
never...
like, or art is a fact. It's still art, no, whether you dislike it or not. You know, I think. But here's the thing. Okay, here's the line. Here's the line where I'll draw, and I really do have to go. But here's the line I will draw. The line I will draw is this. The line I draw is when I'm trying to think of how this would work.
Well, you're thinking real fast. I just want to point out, I absolutely do not favor hiding anything from people at all.
Right.
So
you're not for censorship.
Right.
No.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. No. Neither am I. It's Jesus. I'm trying to think of how, and it's in the same way. And this is we can have this conversation when we return from our viewing. We can have that whole conversation about, do you separate the art from the artist? Because that's another level of this conversation.
That haunts me.
It does not haunt me, actually.
No.
I will straight. You know what? Maybe we shouldn't open that can of worms.
Okay.
That is a mile-long conversation.
Yes.
I'd love to have it, but it's a mile-long conversation. But I think it falls into the same under similar circumstances of, you need to compartmentalize. There are certain outlier cases where you go, okay, no, that movie should be no, like fuck that movie, and I can't think of anything off the top of my head. But so I want to make a broad generalization that's not black and white. It's very gray. And it is that if you can compartmentalize what you're watching within the context of the time it was created, and it will allow, and it should still remain a valid story, even if, I mean, look at classic literature. Look at fucking Huckleberry Finn. Look at like it's a context of its times, like, man. You have a character called N something,
like
N Jim.
I'm a big fan of Lovecraft, and like
Lovecraft. There you go.
Permeated, yeah.
There you go. There's a doozy right there. I love Lovecraft guy. Listen, Steven, this was really, really fun.
Yeah,
fun
man.
Conversation. I want to thank you so much.
No, I'm so glad you
on this first part.
Yeah. Let's hope you're still as happy about it after we do the second part.
Oh, I think I'm going to be frothing at the mouth. You're going to have to rein me in. You're going to have to pull me down. You're going to have to. You thought I was talking a mile a minute. Now, just wait.
I'm looking forward to
it. Do you have an outro right now, or we're good?
No, that's it. I like to cut it off right in the middle of a sentence, actually.
Oh, dude, thank you so much. This was so much fun. I really enjoyed this conversation. It was really good. We went all over the board in the best way. I enjoyed it, man.
Thanks a lot, Jeff. I really appreciate it.
Okay. So all right. So I